After a work-related accident, I found myself in the hospital, hoping for some comfort and support. Shockingly, my wife never visited, not even once. When I managed to get her on the phone, her words were as cold as ice. "You're not worth the gas money. Either get better quickly or just die." Then her son picked up the phone and bluntly stated, "We don't miss you." Heartbroken, I hung up. A month later, I couldn't take it anymore. I signed myself out of the hospital earlier than advised and decided not to return to the place I used to call home. Yesterday, my sister sent me a video capturing my wife in a fit of rage, screaming outside our empty house. "He took everything, given the dog." I'm 42, and I've been married to Barbara, who's 39, for 8 years. Barbara came into our marriage with her son Gage, who was 8 when we first met and is now 16. From the very beginning, I put in a lot of effort trying to connect with him, but somehow things never quite fell into place. I built him a tree house, taught him how to official part of the ultimate stepdad package. Barbara and I might not have been the ideal couple you'd find splashed across social media, but I thought we were solid. We had our routine, our shared jokes, our life together. Everything seemed just right until 51 days ago. I was on a construction site when a support beam suddenly gave way. To cut a long story short, I was left with a crushed leg, 3 broken ribs, and a punctured lung. The doctors later told me how lucky I was to be alive, though these days it's hard to feel fortunate. The first night in the hospital is a haze blurred by pain meds that had me drifting in and out. I managed to call Barbara, warning her not to bring Gage. Things looked pretty grim. She promised to be there first thing in the morning. Morning came. "Barbara, no show again. It's already day 2. I guessed she was busy handling things with Gage or maybe swamped with work. I called her that evening, and she picked up while she was engrossed in some loud reality show blaring in the background. She promised she'd try to come by the next day. By day 3, still no Barbara. By the 5th day, my concern was no longer about us. I was genuinely worried for her. Had she been in an accident? Was Gage okay? I asked a nurse if my wife had called, but there was nothing. Every call I made went straight to voicemail, like a stubborn pattern that wouldn't break. Days turned into weeks, and the silence stretched into 2 long weeks. My worrying grew with each passing day. The nurses began giving me sympathetic glances, their eyes full of unspoken concern. Tessa, one of the nurses who had become a comforting presence, often joined me during her breaks. Although she never asked about my wife's absence, her eyes sometimes revealed the unasked question lurking beneath. After 3 long weeks in the ICU, I was finally transferred to a regular room, a small victory shadowed by the quiet emptiness of my hospital visits. During that time, I had only spoken to Barbara twice, and both conversations had been painfully brief, barely reaching the 3-minute mark. Each call, she was busy juggling endless tasks, caring for our sick dog, Curtis, dealing with a leaking dishwasher, or attending Gage's game away, some reason for her scarcity. That night, sleep was elusive. My mind replayed the memory of our 8th anniversary just 2 months earlier, a night that foreshadowed this distance. I remembered how Barbara seemed miles away, her attention more on her phone than on us, an unsettling silence beginning to wedge itself between our hearts. When I asked if everything was all right, She flashed a smile and said, "Of course, why wouldn't it be?" It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off. Was that some kind of foreshadowing? Life can be so unpredictable. Fast forward for weeks. I'm going through my third leg surgery, and Barbara still hasn't shown up. In contrast, my sister Bernice has been a constant presence, visiting almost daily with real home-cooked meals and updates about Curtis the dog. By the way, is perfectly fine. One afternoon, Bernice hesitated before leaving, then turned to me and asked if I wanted her to speak to Barbara. About what? I questioned, but her expression said it all. Bernice, bless her, has never been one to hide her emotions. We were raised in a house where you spoke your mind and meant every word. Or perhaps she chose silence. After 28 days of not visiting her husband in the hospital, Bernice finally opened up. Something inside me shattered at my heart. But the bubble of denial I'd been living in, I suggested Bernice take a look at our joint account. You might call it intuition, or perhaps I was just finally ready to face the truth. 2 days later, she showed up with my laptop and helped me log into our banking system. What I discovered set my blood pressure skyrocketing, setting off alarms and bringing a nurse rushing to my side. In the past month, $6,000 had vanished aimlessly, ATM withdrawals, some mysterious transfers to an unfamiliar account, and even a charge from a jewelry store. Barbara never wore jewelry beyond her wedding ring and the necklace I gave her last Christmas. That night, I made a phone call that shifted the course of everything. For once, Barbara actually picked up the phone. I decided not to bring up the money issue and simply asked when she planned to visit. She replied, "You know, the hospital's like 40 minutes away," and I could hear her munching something, probably having dinner. Gas prices are through the roof right now, $5 a gallon. And with everything else, I echoed her, everything else, feeling the weight of her unspoken burdens in the silence that followed. "Well, yeah," she eventually said, "I'm practically a single parent at this point. Cage has his activities, and there's always something to fix in the house. That leaky roof isn't going to repair itself." I reminded her that our sister had offered to pick her up countless times, that friends were willing to give her a ride, and that we had ample money to cover her gas, or at least we used to, before all those mysterious withdrawals she'd started making. That's when she finally said, with words that will forever echo in my mind, "You're not worth the gas money, Everett. Either get better quickly or face the inevitable. But this limbo is driving me insane." I must have made some kind of noise, because she instantly began to backtrack, claiming she was just stressed and didn't mean what she said, but her words barely registered. Then Gage took the phone, apparently listening the whole time. "We don't miss you," he declared, his voice quivering as he tried to mask his own uncertainty with bravado. Meanwhile, Mom's friend, Silvio, who conveniently moved in next door 6 months ago and has been stepping up to help out around the house whenever I am stuck at work late, has been filling the void. Feeling overwhelmed, I disconnected the call, not bothering to say a word, and just stared blankly at the ceiling. It felt like an eternity had passed. Finally, morning broke. It was my 36th day in the hospital. Tessa, the nurse with the warm smile, came by with my medication, had an extra pudding cup. "Rough night?" she asked, gently, noting my untouched breakfast. For some reason, Maybe because she had shown me genuine kindness without expecting anything in return, I opened up to her about everything. She listened patiently, without interrupting, and offered me a piece of wisdom that lingered with me. Some people reveal their true selves during the good times. The wise ones notice. The rest of us find out during the tough times. The following 2 weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of physical therapy sessions, doctor appointments, and clandestine planning. I decided to instruct the hospital staff not to share any information with Barbara if she happened to call. She never did. Bernice had been a lifesaver, delivering piles of documents from our home office while Barbara was busy at work. I used her phone to make some crucial calls, all while keeping a vigilant eye on our bank accounts daily. Each day unveiled more withdrawals and baffling expenses. One curious charge caught my eye: the plane tickets to Cancun. Strange, since Barbara can't stand the beach, always says it's because the sand gets absolutely everywhere. Then came the afternoon when Bernice walked in looking uneasy. She had driven past our house and noticed Silvio's car parked in our driveway. It was 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, a time Barbara was supposed to be at work. Rather than feeling angry or devastated, an unexpected calm washed over me, weaving everything into a coherent picture. That night I approached Tessa, asking what it would take to discharge myself early. The doctors were insistent on at least 3 more weeks, considering my leg was still encased in a bulky brace. I could hardly manage to walk even with a walker. Yet, standing on the brink of this revelation, I felt a renewed strength and readiness to face what came next. I knew I had to make a move before Barbara could drain our bank accounts completely. Ama, Tessa advised sternly against medical advice, but despite everything, you're still on the mend. There's a hefty risk of infection. I can't stay here, I insisted, my voice heavy with desperation. Not anymore. Tessa, with her unwavering support, walked me through everything I'd need for home care. She helped me contact a medical supply company that could deliver all the necessary equipment, and even connected me with a home health service that could assist starting on day 51. Determined, I signed the AMA papers. My doctor spent a solid half-hour trying to persuade me otherwise, warning of severe complications, but I assured him that staying put posed an even greater risk for me. Bernice arrived in her SUV, a comforting sight in the hospital parking lot. She had thoughtfully folded down the back seat so I could stretch out and keep my leg elevated. As we drove away from the hospital, leaving the sterile corridors and beeping machines behind, she turned to me and asked the question that was hanging in the air: "Where to? Your place?" I glanced at the diminishing hospital and the side mirror, feeling a mix of anxiety and relief as it faded from view. 51 days in the hospital, and not a single visit from my wife. Can you believe that? No, I replied to the nurse, I'm not going home. Take me to the Staybridge on Wesley. I've already made a reservation. Extended stay, she asked. For how long? Echoed in my mind as images of Barbara to Silvio flashed before me. She didn't even show concern about the missing money or our planned beach getaway. 8 years spent building a life with someone who couldn't take the time to visit me. As long as it takes, I finally answered, I've got some planning to do. Bernice, the kind nurse, shot me a sideways glance before focusing back on the road. You're going nuclear. aren't you?" For the first time in 51 days, a smile crept across my face. "No, I'm just giving Barbara exactly what she deserves. Nothing more, nothing less." And with that, Operation Empty House was officially underway. Update 1. A little slice of my reality. Hey everyone, I just wanted to thank you all for the incredible support and the many messages from my last post. I was genuinely surprised by how much attention it got. Some of you have questioned the authenticity of my story, which is an odd reaction, but to each their own. Others were eager for an immediate follow-up. Sorry for the delay. Juggling a quest for revenge with the daunting task of recovering from serious injuries has been, unsurprisingly, quite time-consuming. Let me pick up where I left off. I had just landed at the Staybridge on Wesley. That first night was no walk in the park. The hotel room felt cavernous and oddly silent after the buzz of the hospital. I missed the comforting routine of nurses checking in every few hours and the usual symphony of monitoring equipment. It was just me, alone with my thoughts, and a leg that felt like it was under constant assault. In a vain attempt to distract myself from the relentless pain, I ended up glued to an all-night cooking competition, which offered little help until 4 a.m., when I finally succumbed to exhaustion. The morning after my accident, Bernice surprised me with breakfast, those microwavable sandwiches, and a cup of the strongest coffee imaginable. As she browsed through comments on a neighborhood social media group, I discovered something shocking. Barbara had made a post about her heroic husband, desperately asking for prayers as he fought for his life. Accompanying it was a vacation photo of us from 5 years ago. The post was made just 3 days after my accident, and she never mentioned me again. The nerve of that woman. Bernice urged me to call Barbara right away, to confront her and to expose her deceit on social media. A part of me craved that dramatic showdown, a messy and public display that would lay bare her actions for the world to see. But a piece of advice from Tessa at the hospital kept replaying in my mind. The best revenge isn't just planned, it's patient. Instead of sending a flurry of angry texts, I decided to channel my energy into making a list. I opened the Notes app on my phone and began typing out everything I needed to tackle. Top of the list, find a lawyer. I also needed to document our assets, figure out where our finances went off track, and get my own bank account set up. I needed to find a permanent place to live and, most importantly, get Curtis back. Thankfully, Bernice stepped in to help me find a lawyer who could come to the hotel since I wasn't able to drive. The next day, a guy named Reggie showed up, not in the typical suit and tie, but rather in jeans, sneakers, and carrying a backpack instead of a briefcase. He wasn't what I expected, but Reggie turned out to be exactly what I needed. He was practical, straightforward, and specialized in navigating complex domestic situations. The first question Reggie posed was whether I was looking for a divorce or just a separation. Truth be told, I hadn't even thought that far ahead. The answer hit me faster than I could have imagined. Divorce, I declared firmly, absolutely divorce. We spent an exhausting 3 hours dissecting every detail. The house, a pre-marriage purchase, but later refinanced jointly. The cars, each registered separately. The bank accounts, primarily shared. The retirement funds toes were separate. Reggie jotted down notes on his tablet, occasionally letting out a soft, incredulous whistle. "So, she hasn't come to see you at all? You've been in the hospital?" he asked. Peering up from his notes, 51 days, I replied. Not a single visit. He shook his head in disapproval. And you're certain about the withdrawals, the trips? This Silvio guy. I showed him the evidence, bank statements, credit card transactions, and social media posts. Bernice had been meticulous, capturing screenshots to paint a clear picture. Barbara had been checking in at restaurants I'd never even heard of, always accompanied by a mystery friend who remained untagged. This left me pondering our situation. Reggie had finally weighed in, explaining, in this state, you have the right to half of all marital assets. But there was a critical twist. I needed evidence of what existed before Barbara could start concealing anything. That night, sleep eluded me because of physical pain, but due to the churn of plans unfolding in my mind. I lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling fan, each spin echoing a new possibility. Barbara was under the impression I was still confined to the hospital. She hadn't the faintest clue I was aware of Silvio, the hidden Fonsani of it. This ignorance gave me a crucial edge, one I couldn't afford to squander. On the third day at the hotel, I took action. I set up a new email account, aiming to uncover her phone activities online. I then messaged Barbara from my regular phone, concocting a story about the doctor's decision to keep me a few extra days due to patchy reception, promising to call when I could. She responded with just a thumbs-up emoji, no words. Just the next week, I found myself buried in documentation. While Barbara was at work, Bernice came over to our house and meticulously photographed everything, every room, every drawer, every closet. She gathered all my crucial documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, and grabbed some clothes along with my backup laptop. Meanwhile, I was on a mission of my own. I opened new accounts at a different bank, arranged for my paychecks to be directly deposited there, and transferred my half of the savings, exactly half, as Reggie had wisely suggested. I canceled our joint credit cards and secured one just for myself. Finding a new apartment was a challenge, especially since I wasn't very mobile. I ended up doing virtual tour on my laptop and finally settled on a ground floor unit in a building with an elevator just 15 minutes away from my old place. I signed the lease digitally and paid the deposit using my new bank account. 2 weeks after I was discharged from the hospital, I found myself steadily gaining strength, though I still relied on a walker. During this time, Barbara had reached out only twice. Each conversation was brief, barely lasting a minute, as she seemed perpetually hurried and preoccupied. Despite this, I maintained a facade of optimism, assuring her that my physical therapy sessions were paying off and the doctors were pleased with my advancements. Then Bernice clued me in on Barbara's plans, a 3-day girls' getaway to Nashville, leaving Friday morning and returning Sunday night. The timing was uncanny, almost as if it were orchestrated by fate itself. Seizing the opportunity, I contacted a moving company, scheduling them for Saturday. I even opted for their packing services to ensure a seamless transition. Meticulously, I cataloged everything, the belongings I came into the marriage with, the items acquired together, and what belonged solely to her. Reggie, my confidant, reviewed everything with me to ensure it was all accounted for. Keeping everything above board was no easy feat, and the waiting seemed endless. By the time Thursday evening rolled around, I was a bundle of nerves. My mind was a whirlwind of worries, What if Barbara canceled her trip? What if she came home unexpectedly? What if Gage decided to stay behind? The relentless stream of what-ifs was exhausting. Friday morning offered a glimmer of hope. At 7 a.m., I held my breath as Bernice drove past our house. Barbara's car was nowhere in sight, replaced instead by an airport shuttle van loading up her luggage. It was a sign-operation. Empty house was officially in motion. By Saturday, Bernice swung by the hotel to pick me up at noon. I'd graduated from a walker to crutches by then low as molasses, but at least I was mobile. We arrived at the house just as the moving truck pulled up, and for movers, got straight down to business. Armed with my keys, an inventory list, and a determination I hadn't known I was capable of, I was ready to tackle this new chapter. Stepping through the door of my home after nearly 70 days felt like entering a dream. Everything was familiar, yet oddly reimagined, as if I'd walk onto a TV set based on my life instead of my actual living space. Photos of Barbara and me adorned the walls, while a stack of mail cluttered the kitchen counter. Gage's shoes lay scattered in the entryway. To my amazement, the entire house was impeccably clean, as if ready for a magazine photo shoot. In 8 years of marriage, I had never seen it this spotless. It seems Barbara only went all out with the cleaning for Silvio, not her own husband. Just then Curtis, our energetic bundle of fur, bounded down the stairs at the sound of my voice. Despite my crutches, he nearly toppled me over with 80 pounds of pure, exuberant canine joy. He whined, licked, and wiggled so eagerly I thought his tail might take off. In that moment, feeling my dog's sheer happiness at my return after months away, I nearly broke down. I had to slip away to the bathroom for a moment to compose myself. The movers were incredibly efficient, tackling the largest pieces of furniture first. They carefully maneuvered the bedroom set I had bought before the wedding, a stark contrast to the living room furniture that we had lovingly chosen together, splitting costs down the middle. As they packed up my home office and my garage full of tools, I noticed that Barbara's belongings remained untouched. Her vanity, her closet brimming with clothes, and her craft supplies. The most challenging part was Gage's room. Technically, I wasn't required to take anything since I had no legal claim, but my heart told a different story. I'd been in his life for 8 years, teaching him to ride a bike and guiding him through science fair projects. In the end, I left everything of his behind except the gaming setup. It was a small token of the many shared memories that would stay with me forever. I had bought it for him last Christmas, and now it accompanied me on this new journey. Around 4 p.m., Bernice ordered pizza, a little comfort amidst the chaos, and we all gathered in the half-empty living room. We perched on moving blankets and devoured the pizza straight from the box. The scene was surreal. One of the movers, with a knowing look, casually asked why some belongings were being left behind. I simply explained that we were dividing our lives, splitting the household. He gave a nod, the kind that says he's witnessed countless stories like ours. By 7 p.m., the truck was packed to the brim. I took a final walk through what used to be our home, ensuring I took only what was rightfully mine, no more, no less. Standing in what was once our shared bedroom, my eyes lingered on the wedding photo resting on Barbara's knit-stand. I decided to leave it behind, allowing her to face the chapter when the time came. That first night in my new apartment was a whirlwind of boxes and mismatched furniture scattered everywhere, a tangible symbol of starting anew amidst the chaos. I felt a bit useless trying to organize everything. Curtis, my loyal dog, was wandering around, sniffing every corner with a look of bewilderment, clearly trying to figure out where we had landed. Bernice stayed with me almost until midnight, helping me unpack the essentials and set up my bed. When she finally left, the silence hit harder than I expected. It was just me and Curtis in this unfamiliar space, surrounded by the remnants of my old life now packed into boxes. I plopped down on the couch, which was awkwardly situated right in the center of the living room, and aimlessly scrolled through my phone. Barbara had uploaded photos from her trip to Nashville, her face glowing with joy as she spent time with her friends. The captions were full of excitement. Girls' weekend, living my best life. But the house we once shared was now half empty, echoing with memories and absence. Sunday rolled around slowly. I knew it wouldn't be long before Barbara and her fiancé returned home at evening, yet the weight of transition hung in the air, bittersweet and palpable. I braced myself for an anxiety storm, but was surprised by an eerie sense of calm, as if I were watching a movie whose ending I already knew. As the clock struck 6 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Bernice. They're home, waiting for the fallout. By 6:47 p.m., my phone was practically vibrating off the table. Barbara had texted first. "Where is all our stuff? What did you do? Are you serious right now?" Calls started flooding in, one after another, each more frantic than the last. I let them roll in without answering. After 6 relentless calls, I decided to power down my phone entirely. About an hour later, my burner phone blinked with a message from Bernice. "You won't believe what I just saw." A video clip from a doorbell camera popped up on my phone, sent by a friend who lives just 2 houses down and across the street. She's close enough to have a perfect view of our front door. In the video, there's Barbara standing on our front lawn, yelling frantically at our house. Her hands were flailing, and her face twisted in anguish. The audio was crystal clear, capturing everything she said. "He took everything," she screamed, her voice desperate and broken. "Even the goddamn dog. Who does this?" As her words echoed, Curtis, our loyal hound, paused his bone-chewing session. He perked up at the sound of her voice, tilting his head in curiosity, but then just calmly resumed his chopping. Nothing seemed to faze that smart pooch. Later that night, when I turned my phone back on, it buzzed incessantly, 17 missed calls and 30 text messages. For voicemails awaited me, but I could only muster the strength to listen to one. Barbara's voice trembled with emotion. "You can't just vanish with our belongings. This isn't right. I'm notifying the police." Concerned, I quickly forwarded the message to Reggie, who reassured me almost instantly. Let her make the call. Every step we took was completely legitimate. The next day, I was greeted by an email from Barbara. The subject line read, "We need to talk." Inside, the mere 3 lines captured a whirlwind of emotions. "I understand you're upset, but this has gone too far. Please call me. We can resolve this. B." No apology came, no acknowledgement of what she had done. Just Barbara, expecting to control the situation like always. I chose silence. Instead, I had Reggie draft a formal letter that methodically laid out exactly what I had taken and the reasons why, alongside divorce papers. Everything done legally, meticulously, and by the book. That afternoon, as I sorted through boxes in the unfamiliar comfort of my new kitchen, I stumbled upon a forgotten piece of our pasta card. It was the anniversary card Barbara had handed me just 2 months before my accident. In it, she had penned wishes for many more years of building our life together. I lingered over it for what felt like eternity, absorbing the weight of a promise she had shattered before it even fully existed. So I snapped a photo and sent it off to Barbara with a simple query. Is Silvio already in the frame? The anticipation was palpable as I watched the notification that she'd seen the message instantly. I could feel her hesitation through the screen as I watched those 3 dots blink on and off. Finally, her response came through. It's complicated. In that moment, clarity hit me. Choice was unmistakably the right one. Because sometimes what seems tangled is actually crystal clear. Now, on to what you've all been eagerly awaiting, a final update. Apologies for taking so long. Honestly, life has been an overwhelming whirlwind. But first, let me express my deepest gratitude for the flood of awards, DMs, and uplifting words. I never imagined my personal chaos would strike such a chord with so many of you. It's been 3 months since I launched Operation Empty House, a fresh start I desperately needed. For 90 days, I've been piecing my life back together, watching from a safe distance as the remnants of my previous existence crumble. The strangest part of this journey, bobby pins, these little bits of forgotten metal kept appearing in the oddest places for weeks. Tucked inside my shoes, nestled in a box of kitchen utensils, lost between sofa cushions. Each pen felt like a ghost of the life I left behind, a poignant reminder that even after taking only what was genuinely mine, traces of Barbara's influence lingered where they weren't welcome. Following my last update, things spiraled quickly. Barbara's anger morphed with breathtaking speed from scathing texts to tearful voicemails in just 48 hours. The emotional roller coaster was something to witness. 1 minute, she threatened me with legal action, and the next, 3 days after I moved out, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I normally would have ignored it, but something compelled me to pick up. It was him. His voice was softer, almost as though the weeks apart had diminished him. He wanted to see me just to talk. He promised no drama, no bringing Barbara into it, just the 2 of us. I paused. His words had stung. The "we don't miss you" jab still echoed painfully in my mind. But 8 years as his stepdad doesn't just disappear in an instant. Despite everything, part of me longed to reconnect with him, to see if we could find some way back to each other, past the manipulation and hurt. I told him he could come over the next day after school. I gave him my address, but made him promise not to tell his mom. Bernie thought I was being foolish, warning me it could be a trap. Barbara might have used his visit to find out where I lived. Maybe Bernie was right, but I had to take the risk. I needed to know if there was anything worth salvaging here. Gage showed up right on time, wearing the hoodie I got him last Christmas. He looked a bit lost, standing in the doorway of my new place, taking in the scene of half-unpacked boxes and makeshift furniture. Curtis, my dog, went wild at the sight of him, wagging his tail and jumping all over, practically knocking the poor kid down. What followed was perhaps the most genuine conversation I've ever had with my stepson. We sat out on the balcony, sipping sodas and watching the traffic below. Gage focused on his shoes most of the time as he shared that Barbara and Silvio had been seeing each other. For nearly a year, he'd been keeping this to himself. He told me he had overheard them talking about me during my hospital stay. Barbara had remarked how my accident had conveniently given them extra time together. The worst part, the "we don't miss you" comment wasn't even his idea. Barbara had coached him on what to say, promising him a new gaming system if he delivered the line convincingly enough. She wanted to push me away so I'd stop reaching out so often. At just 16, he was torn between loyalty to his mom and his own sense of right and wrong. I asked him why he was choosing to tell me all of this now. He finally looked up, meeting my gaze, and said that discovering the house half empty had been a wake-up call. He realized who his mother really was when she spent an entire night chatting with her friends rather than searching for him. She seemed more concerned about the missing furniture and about whether I was okay. That night after Gage left, I was left to grapple with the emotions of betrayal and revelation. Until 2 a.m., I lingered on my balcony, sipping a beer and trying to make sense of everything. My mind replayed all the signs I'd overlooked over the years, those countless late nights spent at work events, the weekends filled with friends I'd never met. I had chalked up the growing distance between us to the natural ups and downs of a relationship. The next morning, my old burner phone buzzed unexpectedly with a message from an unknown number. It contained just one line. "I know Gage visited you yesterday. It was Barbara." Somehow she'd gotten hold of my new number, likely snooping through Gage's phone. He slept. I chose not to reply. Instead, I reached out to Reggie and filled him in on the latest developments. He advised me to route all communication through him from now on, a standard procedure in contentious divorces, he assured me, and a sign that we were still on firm legal ground. About the property division, I was reminded to keep a meticulous record if any harassment or threats came my way. Just 2 weeks after I moved into my new place, the doorbell camera installed by Bernice captured something unsettling. Barbara was parked in the visitor's lot, just staring at my building for what seemed like an eternity, 3 hours to be exact. The notification flashed on my phone while I was at physical therapy, and instantly my anxiety skyrocketed. This was supposed to be my refuge, my new sanctuary away from all the chaos, but now it felt tainted and unsafe. By the time I returned home, Barbara had left, but she had left her mark. A package sat ominously outside my door. There was no shipping label, only my name messily scrawled in Barbara's handwriting. Inside, I found Curtis's old dog bed, some nostalgic photos of Gage and me fishing, and a letter. I couldn't bring myself to read it right away. I tucked it away in a drawer, hoping to erase its presence from my mind. That night, Barbara reached out again, calling from yet another unfamiliar number. I hesitated before picking up, but an inexplicable instinct urged me to answer. Her tone was different, stripped of her usual manipulative edge. It felt more restrained. She inquired about Curtis, concerned about how my healing was going. Then she fell silent for so long that I wondered if the line had gone dead. Finally, she broke the silence, offering to reveal everything, promising no more lies or games, only the unvarnished truth. A part of me resisted. I wanted to protect the hard-won progress I'd made, but a deeper need for answers, for closure, drew me in. So we continued. Our conversation stretched nearly 2 hours. She confessed that her affair with Silvio had been ongoing for 9 months before my accident. She had been considering asking for a divorce, but claimed she could never find the perfect moment. Then everything changed when I got hurt. Suddenly, everything boiled down to a cruel calculation. If I had died, she would have received the insurance payout. If I survived, she knew she'd have to divide our assets in a divorce. That's why she never came to visit me in the hospital, was hoping I wouldn't make it. Imagine that. My wife, after 8 years of marriage, was secretly wishing for my death. When I survived, her actions spoke volumes. She started withdrawing money, quietly setting the stage for our inevitable separation. There were tickets to Cancun, a plan to escape with Silvio in the aftermath of our fallout. And what about that charge at the jewelry store? It all unraveled with a clarity that left me reeling. Gift for him, but not for her. I listened in silence, allowing each word to wash over me without interruption, without a flicker of emotion. Every revelation felt like another heavy brick, building a wall that separated my past life from the one I was stepping into. When she finally paused, I had only one question lingering in my mind. Why share this with me now? Her laugh came, but it was hollow, stripped of joy. She explained that Silvio had ended things the day after I left. Apparently, what she called my psycho move had rattled him. It woke him up to the idea that maybe she wasn't worth the chaos. And so there she was, alone in a half-empty house with a son who barely gave her his words. I should have felt a sense of triumph, maybe even vindication, but instead all I felt was exhaustion, so tired of the endless games and tangled lies. The entire situation was an emotional roller coaster. I told her that Reggie would handle everything from now on, and that there was nothing more for us to discuss. Then, about a week later, Gage reached out to see if he could spend weekends at my place. He told me the tension at home was getting unbearable, with Barbara drinking more heavily than usual and breaking down into tears for no apparent reason. She was also picking fights over trivial matters. When I consulted with Reggie, he explained that the legalities were complex but manageable, provided Barbara gave her consent. To my surprise, she agreed. Perhaps she felt guilty, or maybe she just needed a break from parenting. Whatever her reasons, I took the opportunity to clear out the second bedroom and make it welcoming for Gage. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a bed, a desk, and some room for his belongings. The first weekend he came over was incredibly awkward. At first, we stumbled awkwardly, unsure of how to navigate this new reality together. Instead of figuring it out, we distracted ourselves with endless video games and far too much takeout. But by the third weekend, we found our groove. Cozy Friday night movies, delicious stacks of Saturday morning pancakes, and peaceful Sunday dog walks with Curtis. These small, everyday moments slowly began to weave a new kind of relationship between us. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings dragged on. Barbara initially challenged some of the property division, but then surprised everyone by dropping her objections and signing everything without further dispute. The house would go up for sale, and we'd split the proceeds equally. Everything else would be divided as Reggie originally planned. 6 weeks after settling into my new place, I found myself aimlessly scrolling through Instagram when a name caught my eye. It was a suggestion for a friend I hadn't seen in a while, Tessa. From my hospital days, we'd swapped numbers back then, but had drifted apart. Her profile was a collection of breathtaking hiking adventures and delicious-looking food snapshots. Acting on a whim, I decided to send her a quick message, just a friendly hello to see how she was doing. To my surprise, she replied almost instantly. A few days later, we found ourselves sitting across from each other at a cozy coffee shop. There was nothing romantic underway, just two friends reconnecting and sharing stories of life's latest chapters. Tessa had switched jobs and was now at a different hospital. I shared snapshots of Curtis settling into his new apartment and recounted Gage's lively weekend visits. As I spoke, I couldn't help but notice her familiar attentiveness, that same thoughtful focus she had when we first met. It felt like every word I said truly resonated with her. Before we parted ways, Tessa mentioned a support group for people navigating major life changes and recovering from significant injuries. She confided that it had been a beacon for her after her divorce years ago. Her casual mention of this group stayed with me, a gentle reminder that even during challenging times, support is just a conversation away. I initially gathered the information, but wasn't ready to dive in right away. Being part of a group didn't seem like my thing. Yet, 2 weeks later, there I was, sitting in a community center meeting room, surrounded by strangers, each carrying their own narrative. That first meeting, I stayed mostly silent, just taking it all in. Surprisingly, there was a unique comfort in being among people who truly understood the physical and emotional challenges of starting over completely. 3 months had passed since I stopped isolating myself, and life was finally beginning to find its rhythm again. My leg was on the mend, still a slight limp remained, but the crutches were gone. My apartment now felt like home instead of a dumping ground. Curtis, my cat, had claimed his favorite sunny spot by the sliding door, making the place feel lively. Then, looming on the horizon, was the final divorce hearing day I had been dreading for weeks, not because I doubted my decision, but because it meant facing Barbara, sharing the same space one last time. The courtroom was unexpectedly intimate, feeling almost too small for the gravity of what was about to happen. Across the aisle sat Barbara, adorned in a dress unfamiliar to me, every detail from her perfectly styled hair to her immaculate makeup suggesting a carefully curated performance. It was as if she was preparing for a show rather than the conclusion of our shared history. When our eyes briefly locked, she offered a smile tight and unyielding, her eyes betraying none of her emotions. The proceedings that followed were underwhelming in their simplicity. The judge meticulously reviewed our agreement, posed a handful of clarifying questions, and with a decisive stroke of his pen, ended 8 years of marriage in under 30 minutes. It was surreal how swiftly a shared life could be unraveled. As we exited, Barbara paused in the hallway, a moment that could have led to drama hung palpably in the air. Instead, she extended an envelope toward me. Inside, she explained, was a copy of a wedding photo I had inadvertently left behind. I thought you might want it someday for the sake of memories, she said, her voice unexpectedly gentle. I accepted it with a courteous thanks, feeling the weight of nostalgia and the echoes of a relationship now officially consigned to the past. I tucked it into my jacket pocket without a second glance and walked away. When I got home, I tossed the photo into the trash, trying to leave it with the past. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Gage, checking if our weekend plans were still a go, even after the divorce was finalized. Something about that message, the vulnerability, the fear of losing even more, struck a chord deep inside me. I was reminded that while Barbara and I were over, my bond with Gage didn't have to end as well. I replied without hesitation, assuring him, "Absolutely, pizza and movie night tomorrow. You get to choose this time." The next evening, Gage and I settled on the couch with Curtis sprawled comfortably across our laps. As the movie played, I found myself genuinely laughing at a silly joke, not just offering the polite chuckle we often fall back on in social settings, but an unexpected, genuine laugh that felt refreshingly real. That's when it truly dawned on me. I was going to be okay. Not immediately, not flawlessly, but in time genuinely okay. Just last week, Barbara finally sold the house. The movers came to collect her remaining belongings, and Bernie sent me a photo of the sold sign standing proudly in the yard. It should have felt monumental, like an ending, but honestly, it was just another step in the slow process of untangling our intertwined lives. And then, yesterday, I attended my last physical therapy session. The therapist told me I had made remarkable progress, noting that most people with my type of injury often take twice as long to recover to this point. I credited my improvement to sheer spite and stubbornness. He called it resilience. Perhaps we were both right. So that's where I am now. The divorce is finalized. The house has been sold, marking a new chapter. My physical recovery is steadily progressing, and I'm finding my footing, moving forward day by day. Gage comes to visit regularly, bringing a sense of warmth and connection. Curtis is doing exceptionally well, which is a huge relief. And then there's Tessa. We've shared 6 coffee dates and to dinners, taking things at a gentle pace. There's no rush, no pressure, just two souls discovering each other naturally. Last weekend, she came by and taught Gage how to make homemade pasta. The kitchen turned into a flower-covered masterpiece, but it resulted in the most delicious meal I've had in months. Barbara and I still exchange texts now and then, mostly concerning Gage or practical matters like forwarding mail or discussing tax and insurance paperwork. Our conversations are polite but short. The anger has mellowed into something resembling distant acceptance. We were woven into each other's lives for a time, but now those threads have unraveled. Silvio made his departure from the neighborhood just last month, seeking a fresh beginning somewhere new. I suppose starting anew seemed less daunting than dealing with the fallout of being the other man in a turbulent divorce. I can't say I fault him for that choice. Recently, someone asked if I have any regrets about how I navigated the situation. Did Operation Empty House go too far? Maybe it did. Yet, I have no regrets about standing up for myself and showing Barbara exactly what life looks like without me in it. When all was said and done, she returned to an empty house, and I rediscovered who I truly am. Thank you, Reddit community, for your comments and support. You helped me through some incredibly dark times. As for future updates, I'm unsure if there will be more to share. I'm dreaming of a life so calm and peaceful that there's nothing exciting enough to share with the world. That sounds absolutely perfect to me right now.